There is too much to get to on Fitz's recruiting update from this past weekend. Penn State official visits, of course, the Elite 11, and more coming out of this particular weekend as we're recording here on a Tuesday. So if you want all the intel and information, bluewhiteillustrated.com. Subscribe right now for just $1. You get a week of access. You can get some of that information. You can try it out, and then you can decide if you want to join us for a year. Most people, when they try us out, they end up staying for a while because the information, the conversation, and the company is just that good, especially on the Blue White Illustrated message board where everyone is famously best friends. So, Fitz, we've got a busy weekend. Where would you like to start with your recruiting update?
I'm going to start with Penn State just officially announced Trevor Pena. The transfers are in. Amari Campbell's here as well. I assume that announcement's probably coming within a few minutes. But Penn State officially adding stuff to rosters now. And also 10 new freshmen moved in over the weekend. So there was 11 to go. 10 new freshmen are in over the weekend. So they will be, I assume, announced or added to the roster without numbers or something of that nature. So that's cool. There's a receiver. Nate just found out that it's always fun to see that happen in real time. But yeah, this weekend was a busy one for more than just the official visitors, 8 official visitors that were in over the weekend. And of course, that's the main storyline. I'm sure we'll talk more about it with Ryan Snyder on Thursday, but also there's been a ton of stuff on the site of bluewhiteillustrated.com as your pitch just indicated. But some busy times in the secondary, especially. Khary Adams was in this weekend, the corner from Maryland. He is a big time target, and Penn State's doing really well with Khary Adams. He's another guy that just kind of fits everything that Terry Smith has done and everything that Terry Smith likes to do. Been on the board for a long time. Of course, Notre Dame's up there, Oregon's up there. He's still got visits scheduled, but Penn State, I think, doing a really good job with Khary Adams. And I think it's one of those ones that you can look at and, hey, this is 2026. This is class 2026. Everything is kind of fractured with everyone needs to make their own decision to make, because they're in their own sort of case by case basis of how much something means versus how much something else means. But I think Khary Adams makes a lot of sense. And I think he could be a real linchpin guy for Penn State if they were to pick him up. One reason is because he moved his visit up so that he could spend some more time with Joey O'Brien. And O'Brien, if not the top target in Penn State's class of 2026, one of the top targets, because he can do kind of it all at 6'4". There you see a one-handed catch as a wide receiver. Well, he's a safety. He could play wide receiver. Penn State has talked to him about playing both ways, and I think that's an appealing option for him. And I think more schools will continue to do that as these conversations will happen. By the way, Amari Campbell just officially announced by Penn State. So there it was. You've got going back to O'Brien. I think this is a wonderful match for Penn State, but it's going to be a tough one because Oregon, Notre Dame, a bunch of schools. I think he goes to Clemson this weekend. A bunch of schools still in it. And we've talked on the podcast before about how every visit is wonderful for Joey O'Brien. I will say, I don't know that I see him ending a recruitment on a visit, and I could eat these words eventually, who knows? But as we've talked about him having new leaders after several different visits, there is that level of, everything's great and every visit's wonderful. But I do think that he eventually will come back and sort of come back to earth, talk to his parents, talk to his coaches, talk to all kinds of people around him and figure out what the actual decision is going to be. So while, yes, it is a roller coaster ride with new leaders and everything like that, I do think a logical decision will come in at some point, and that'll probably come in late June, early July, something like that. And that's probably what Penn State fans can hope for, because as we've said before, getting the first visit for him is going to put Penn State out of sight, out of mind for a long time. And that'll be tough to deal with. So I'll be interested to see if his schedule stays the same. I think he's got 5 or 6 official visits, including the Penn State one. But Joey O'Brien, just a massive target for Penn State. And again, I think they did well with him this weekend. What's it mean on May 20th? Probably not that much. We will see what that. Another guy that has gotten some picks since the visit weekend, Dorian Barney, the Erie native that's in Georgia right now, was up over the weekend. And Penn State, I think, coming away #1 school. I think he said that publicly to a few places right now. So Penn State moving ahead of the likes of Texas A&M, Georgia Tech. I know he took an official visit to Colorado a couple of weeks ago as well. So really moved the needle on his second visit here. He honestly, this recruitment is, I don't want to say carbon copy because everybody's, their own person, but Elliot Washington was the same way. I mean, he was committed to Alabama, just like Dorian Barney. Things kind of grew apart there, and still really good player. And I think Penn State has had him at or near the top of their corner board, along with Khary Adams, along with Brandon Arrington. Boy, that corner board all of a sudden looks really good, which
Yeah.
surprise you if you followed Terry Smith in the least. But there's a lot of potential on that corner board. Cameron Hemile from Arizona was also in this weekend. I think they opened his eyes as well. I don't think it's a situation where you're going to like shut a ton of guys out, but at the same time, Penn State's got some momentum right now, and there's something to be said for that. So be very curious to see what happens if Dorian Barney wants to make a move. We got another corner that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But I'll move on to Jordan Deck, the safety from Texas. This is a guy that Penn State has been trying to get up for a while. Finally made it this weekend, and really fits what Penn State likes to do. And not just in a perspective of on-field stuff. I think that you look at the personality. I know Ryan has talked him up before. Ryan has talked to him, had a couple of lengthy conversations with him, and came away thinking this guy is a guy that fits at Penn State. And now it looks like Penn State and Michigan, a couple of the top schools on there. So that one would check out. As I said before, I know people don't especially like the comparison, but Penn State and Michigan, very similar in terms of the guys that they take, the players that they end up taking. And I mean that in a compliment to both programs. So Messiah Hampton was in this weekend. Brian Williams, the receiver from Florida. Sincere Johnson, the linebacker from Ohio. So, I mean, just a very busy weekend for Penn State. You didn't really expect that when these visits started coming out. It was all these kids, usually from Florida, from, Hemile was from Arizona. So guys from far away. And then the closer it got, the more things became regional, I guess I would say, with Adams, with O'Brien, with Hampton coming in. So I think it's a busy, productive weekend for Penn State, but to not squash it, but to play devil's advocate here, it's still very early in the process. These guys are going to have other visits. So you ride that visit high as long as you can. You maybe try and figure out if you can get one or two guys from this list to jump on board. But otherwise, grab the rope, hold on tight, because it's going to be a long month.
Yeah, and there's going to be more visits, and there's going to be more decisions that put some pressure maybe on other players to make a decision because of the spots. Now, some of the players we just talked about are guys that are going to be on Penn State's board no matter what, and are takes no matter what, because they're, as you mentioned, with Joey O'Brien or some of these guys, top targets at their position and, overall for Penn State in 2026 at this point. So you mentioned there was another corner we might be talking about. What are we talking about with that other corner?
We're talking about Jazeel Hart from Virginia. This is a guy that's been up to campus a lot. It's also a guy that really we could look at and say there's an opportunity for him to jump on board before, an Adams, a Barney, some of these other guys that are top guys, and kind of makes sense because you're looking at a guy that's been on campus a bunch, a guy that fits what Penn State likes to do, a guy that Penn State offered after camp. So, that they've seen him, but he's been all over the place. Penn State and Michigan seem to be the two leaders there. Steve has had a pick in for a long time, I think, on Hart. And we talked about it, actually wrote about him on the S Zone on Friday with our thoughts on that. So Virginia Tech was in there, Tennessee as well. But he's going to commit, I believe, the 22nd, which is 2 days from now. Okay. It's already May 20th. How about that? Anyway, it is another step forward in that defensive class if Penn State's able to land him. But I think Penn State's in a good spot there.